And now for the main event, as I introduce Nellie. When Nellie joined the group maybe a month ago, reached out to her to understand her value proposition, and she told me about the presentation that I've invited her to give today. And I'll paraphrase because this is very intriguing to me. You said, or what I took away was, you can basically do QMS effectively using Microsoft Office products.
Yes.
And you know, I have so many either clients or people with value propositions and software, and they're like, why are you using tools that were not designed for how you're using them? So for example, one of our group members, who, full disclosure, is a client of mine, Samya, is building a product called Essenvia, ESSENVIA, and he's built this platform to process 510Ks and letters to file seamlessly. He pulls in the latest templates and guidances from FDA and other sources. He, has a master information section where you enter it once, it populates through the whole thing. It helps you save time administratively. I'm very impressed with the product. That's why I took him on as a client. And other, full disclosure, Greenlight Guru sponsored the medical devices group for years, back in the heyday. I kind of bought into this notion of, hey, medical device professional, you should use medical device professional software to do your job. So when you said, oh yeah, I use Excel and I encourage people to, I was like, really? That is counter to everything that people typically reach me for. Hey, Joe, can you tell your network about my platform? So today, Joe is asking, hey, Nellie, can you show us how you use Excel effectively and why that's a reasonable solution for many of your clients?
Yeah, so I got started 20 years ago, and I feel like BQC is one of the steps in the highway to quality, or the stairs to high quality versus like the stairs to heaven. And I do believe, and at some point, QMS is important to implement, but in that very beginning stage of product development, getting the engineering stuff done, they don't have funds. They're cash poor, right? And so I say, let's keep it simple. Let's get you implemented, get you going, get you to 510K so you can start making money, and then we'll start looking at the strategies for QMS. So I don't say this is a forever thing, but it's very definitely for those new startups who just don't have the funds to go spend $30,000 or $70,000 on a QMS and then spend the cost of validation. So that's kind of why I do the methodology that I do. And I'm just going to bring these different slides up because this is how when I.
That's fine now, and it'll help us. So use any visuals that you like. So what I heard you say now is, this is a solution for poor people.
Yes, without saying poor people. This is.
Yes, I know, not politically correct.
And that's kind of how I started, doing this. And this is a slide deck I show all new clients, and most of my new clients are people who've never been in the medical device industry and have absolutely no clue. And before this meeting, I thought, I'm going to ask some people what they think of it, right? Because, that's a feedback. And so this is the feedback I got from several group members.
You want to make that full screen or something, or lose the office timeline there on the side?
Is it which way?
Just on the right-hand side where there's an X next to office time bell. Yeah, you can give us more space and maybe shrink that. There you go.
So, what it is I have a group of, it's actually the people and the paperwork system. So I have a group of 5 or 6 people that work with me, and based on, we bring some interns in at a lower rate, and we basically set you up using Microsoft Office, DocuSign, and your network solution of choice.
There are a lot of Bushmen on this.
I didn't start out to convert my kids to like quality. They all interned and needed jobs during college, and now they're actually, oh my God, I really like this. I understand it. It's easy. And so
show of hands in the audience. How many of you want to work for your mom? Just me personally, but okay. Hey, if it works for you, that says a lot about you, because I can assure you, my children will not work for me.
Sometimes it's an interesting conversation. As I said, about 80% of my clients have never been a part of a medical device system. So when I bring them on, I put together this QA tracker, and I'll just show it really quick for you. And this is just some of the tools I bring in. And this is how I give them that scope of, hey, this is what you have to do to become a medical device company, here's all the procedures. And this is just an estimate, because what we do is we come in and we assess your company. What kind of device are you going to do? Is it, low risk, high risk? Is it implantable? Is it over the counter? And so we
You have
develop
it here. Your tab is called QMS Imp Log.
implementation.
Okay, thank you.
So during the entire project, we live and breathe off this log of what we're going to implement for your QMS. And that's how we make sure we're at least meeting ISO 13485 and 820. And 14971's in there too somewhere. So this is the first thing. This is my first Excel tool. And this is, it gets attached to a quality plan for the implementation. And then the other thing kind of just is a standard, you guys don't need this, but this is how I educate people with why they need a QMS. And then this is their
actually, the videos live on, and we may well have an audience member at some point who go ahead and share this slide with us. Talk to us.
So what I'll do is I'll talk with them. I'll say, hey, I'll introduce them to 21 CFR Part 820 and ISO 13485, because as soon as you start using those terms and getting them familiar with it, the better. They'll acclimate faster. Most of them are glossy-eyed the first time I have the conversation about it. And then I'll say, you've got, and I say it's about 60 because, between SOPs and wins that you're going to be implementing, there's that. And then I say, hey, you're going to have about 70 logs and forms, and you're going to, 70, forms and quality records and 15 logs. And, there's additional package for clinical. So, it's just getting them used to that concept of procedures, because the idea of control is something people don't want to do. It's very resistance in the beginning when you've never been a part of it. And then, I talk about the strategy. We get a quality agreement. I usually recommend Dropbox, and the only reason I do that is because it's the most easiest one. And I found that I have been a part of a couple other ones, and clients have literally wiped out their entire data. And I've never had that with Dropbox. And so I'm like, that first year we do backups that verify that we're not losing quality records. So that's that verification that happens once a month. And then I do DocuSign, and then I actually use Slack. I use their free trial version for communicating about all changes going on as part of the implementation process. And then what I do is I set up a folder structure. Every client has the exact same folder structure. The first level is document control, quality records, DCOs, departments. And then it goes into current history. And then just recently, I onboarded the concept of engineering documents, because, your engineers want to be able to have an engineering document. And so I had to think about how to do that without derailing, the revision control process and creating an administrative nightmare of having to manage those engineering docs. So basically, I said, if it's in the engineering folder, I don't care. We don't have to deal with it. It's there. It's not part of my actual control system, but it does go through a DCO process. And then
Jose is asking, do you use regular DocuSign or DocuSign Part 11?
I highly push for Part 11, and I'm about 90% successful. I think one client right now refused to go Part 11 and did the regular, and I mitigate that with using a drop-down feature in Dropbox. It says I approve this document, because when you look at Part 11 requirements, the non-Part 11 actually meets all the requirements except for not providing justification.
I don't know what Part 11 is. Could you either show or explain?
Yeah, the FDA has a 21 CFR Part 11. It's a regulation that says you have to meet certain requirements when using electronic signature and having quality records that are digital or electronic.
And Dropbox uses the same term. I'm familiar with Part 11 from FDA, but I didn't know that that was an equivalent.
Yeah, so it's
nomenclature.
And so basically, when I've done an assessment between the non-Part 11 and the Part 11, the most critical element is not stating why you're signing a document. So we've actually created a little drop down. It's not my preferred method to do it, but if I'm forced into it, I will. I've come up with a solution.
Okay.
And then
just for the folks at home, how much more does it cost a client to use the Part 11? I assume it's more expensive.
So their Part 11 is $4,500 a year, and they've actually been giving me discounts because I've brought so many clients to them. So they've actually started parlaying that into, like, my last client got a 30% discount because I brought them on. I think
that's Bushman, Bushman, for you folks who want to use that and get the discount.
It's not that. It's I actually talk to the same people. So when I'll introduce my clients to the same salespeople, and they'll go, "Oh, Nellie's coming back," So if you're interested, email me and I'll introduce you.
So that's a $1,500 savings right there, which is, and you told me that you are, as far as I'm concerned, underpricing yourself for some reason. Like Nellie comes for free with that, practically.
Okay, you think I'm practically free, but I can tell you startups struggle. They don't want to spend as much money hourly on quality people as they do engineers. I can tell you that much. And so that's where the value is. And to be honest with you, they don't just hire me for 30 days, 90 days. I'm usually there 1 to 2. I was with one client 5 years. I mean, so I'm almost part of the business. And so they have to factor that in when they're looking at my hourly rate. And then we have a whole DCO process, which we're going to actually really talk about DCOs today. And that's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to parlay to. And then I create department folders. Now, the concept here is the folders 0 through 2 are what I call my quality records for the QMS. Department folders are like working documents that are out. They're not outside, but they're still backed up. But I wouldn't show them during an audit as part of my QMS.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're working documents. And so this is the structure that I set everybody up with. I have a standard document template, which I'm going to try and blow this up so you can see one page at a time, just because I can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
About, oh my God, I want to say 15 years ago, I was part of Abbott Laboratories, and they were having a ton of nonconformances about procedures are hard to read, they're inadequate, they're missing information, they're wrong. You know, there's a lot of internal audit findings about it, and somebody challenged them saying, well, if you have all these nonconformances, why aren't you doing anything about it? And so I got lucky. I swear to God, I won the lottery as far as I'm concerned. And I got part of this team called the High Performance Documentation. And I've parlayed that into QMS. And I've almost, without even knowing it, started doing human studies on how people can actually fill out forms and read procedures. And it's become a template that I've implemented. And so I write my documents at point of use, not with a process functions. And so people can easily go find out, ooh, I need to reserve a DCO, or I need to do this. And they can find it very quickly in the document. The other thing I've done is I've moved references to the end of the document. For some reason, it's not in this table. I must have forgot to snap that page. Here, I'll just open the document. That's probably going to be easier.
Oh my.
And this is just my example system that I show people when I'm talking to them. So
few, Madam Allen here. I saw an intimidating number of acronyms there. Most people don't need all of them, right?
That's not acronyms. Those are documents. These are not
yes,
acronyms.
But FRM, all these letters, I don't know what they mean, but
guess
this is
what?
not typical that they need all of these.
Actually, it is typical they need all these, but guess what?
Wow, that's scary.
No, it's not.
It is to me.
Okay, hold my hand. I'm going to take you on a journey.
That's cute.
So let me pull it up. I'm actually got one in a red line, so I'll bring that one up because with each client, we actually change them to their preferences. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's the one thing I've learned. So I have what I call a QRS, which is a quality record. And quality records can be used for anything. I use it for so I have one document. Most companies have 3 to 4 to do this. So this is my document matrix, definitions, approvals, and retention document. And one of the things—
I'm just going to, if you don't mind, well, even if you do, I'm going to interrupt you and say, I'm already at the point, and this is not what I do, and I suspect a lot of your clients, they don't do it either. I'm already feeling like, have Nellie do this for you, because you showed me all those folders and I was like, check, please.
Well, and that's just it. So I walk you through it and I do it for you, but I also, along the way, you learn quality systems, right? The beginning is overwhelming. And I said, look, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to show it to you. But over the course of 6 months, you're going to get to seeing this so often, it's going to become second nature to you.
Okay.
And so the other thing I try to do is any document I create or record, let's put it this way, I try to make sure it does 2 to 5 things at the same time. I don't want to create multiple documents doing multiple things. And so this document, it's defining the prefix, the document types, the approval requirements, and it gives you a definition of that document. And then right here is your lifetime of device, which is the driving force for how long you have to retain it. So now most companies will have 2 or 3, if not 4 documents that do the exact same things this document's doing. So these are the things that go through DCO, and these are the things that are quality records that are forms that you create in your process.
Okay.
So that's just,
Jan leaves me a little note saying that she was trained at Abbott as well, and she can validate that these are all very common for people who know what they're talking about. I'm not one of them. Divya writes, what is the time frame for complete documentation and implementation for a startup for 21 CFR versus ISO 1345?
I don't split them. I tell people, if you're going to do 820, just do 1345. And to be honest with you, it's varied on each client and when they want to get to 510K. And that's what I mean. My process it goes to the time they want. If you're going to get to 510K in 6 months, we can push all the procedures out in 6 months. But if your timeline's a year, I stretch it out over that year because it's not critical. you don't need a full QMS until you get to 510K and you want to start distributing commercial. So it's all when you're going to hit that and we actually move with you on that.
Okay. Mark, I see your hand raised. Go ahead and type out your question. Please continue.
And the other thing is a lot of people will put references in the middle of the document, and I actually put it towards the end in a table, which will parlay into the master index, which I'll introduce you to in about a couple minutes.
Okay.
And then I also make it to where the revision table only has between 2 to 3 of the revisions on it. We don't need to waste 3 pages with revision pages on there. And I'll show you why that works in a minute when we go to the master index. And then the other thing that we've done in our process is everybody knows risk-based approach came out in 2016 for ISO 1345. The FDA is transitioning to 1345. It's going to be a slow boat getting there, but they're all going in that direction. Most people, what they're doing is they're doing a quality FMEA that's 70 pages to 100 pages for your entire QMS. And the only thing it covers is what is the risk and what's the mitigation. And so to me, that's like, okay, that's like just checking the box and adding no value. It's extra work. It's busy work to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down with my team, and what we said is we created an NCR process for your low risk CAPAs that you can do in 30 days or 90 days. There's not a time frame, but that's just conceptually what it is. And we have a CAPA process. And so our risk table does exactly what they say. Here's my risk and here's my mitigation. But then the caveat is, if you have a nonconformance, as part of the investigation and the corrective action of that, you're going to assess the risk that you've already identified and mitigations, or if it's a new one, and you'll update it, which will drive training and awareness to the organization. So now we've created this nice closed loop process, and it's been quite effective. And it makes your QMS risk gets done in bits and chunks instead of doing a whole 70 to 100 page all at once.
Sanjeev, you have a question.
Yeah, so I'm working on a startup and I'm partnering with other companies to do the work. So how do I implement a quality system in such a case?
Well, yeah, I actually have. So you hire me, or you work with me, one of my team members. Usually, what I do is I tell you to bring in a quality system person who's like $50 an hour, who does all doc control and administrative stuff, and then I tell you to bring a QMS implementer, which that's Paige. She actually has started taking up my role, and then I come in more of your director VP, and I review things, and I help you strategize on the your product stuff, your development, your how we want to do your QMS. So I become more of your driver in that, and then we put together a plan and we start just slowly peeling the onion instead of doing it all at once.
Right, but we have partners who are all over the world. So we've got, for example, some groups in Netherlands. There's another group out of Shenzhen. And there's another group out of LA. And so I'm working with all these groups, and we're essentially 3 of us working on this whole project now. So how do I?
So I am the same. So right now I have 6 clients, and they're all over the place. Most mine I actually have 5 are in the US. 1 is Canada/EU, some of the participants, and we just have team meetings and we drive things with action trackers and we just implement. So by having, a Dropbox location and DocuSign, it doesn't matter where people are. It functions very efficiently. So what I would do is I would get a network location that everybody participates in. You start releasing your procedures and you use a validated digital signature process or electronic signature.
No, that's fine. But every company's got their own QA, QC process, QMS process, right? Now we come up with a different process and we tell them, hey, you got to conform to this. A lot of these CROs and CMOs may not. How do you get around that?
So if you're talking about CROs, I actually will work with them and we will adjust it, and we come up with an agreement on how it's like, it's kind of like when you're doing a quality agreement with your CMs or your outsourced processes. It says, I'm going to own this piece, you're going to own this piece, and I'm going to feed it to you. And we agree on how that's going to function. So that's a couple of the meetings where you actually have that negotiation, because I don't feel it's appropriate for me to tell them how to do their system. We come with an agreement, we're in the middle, we meet, and our systems meet together.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I'm starting to grapple with. It's a new company I just started, and now I've got to, and then the other question, sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Okay, sorry, that's what these are for.
When do I get started on the QMS process? The startup is basically, we are 2 months old, right? So when do I get started on that?
I always say the sooner the better, because the worst part you want to do is have me spend money remediating. things and reorganizing what you've put together. And the sooner you get it into there and you come up with a plan, that doesn't mean you have to do a full implementation. We'll do that tracker, we'll do a quality plan, but at least you get doc control training, risk, design control implemented so that you're making sure you're meeting those requirements as you're doing your design control of your product. Okay.
Thanks.
I brought Rick on because he just wanted to pay you a compliment. I think we have time for a compliment. John Richard is on mute. These old people, they just never remember to unmute themselves.
Old people. Stones, glass houses. Okay. So no, I like this because I always associate the risk of disaster with a very complicated system as very, very high. You know, if you're taking on a complicated system. And I like the fact that you're using stock software. And I like the fact that you're using, and I like the fact that I sense a high level of organization and hierarchy in what you are presenting and the way you're organizing it. And also, if you're starting a brand new medical company, the likelihood is very low that you're going to have the experience and judgment necessary to choose the custom designed software system that's not going to land you in the ditch.
Yeah.
And for all of those reasons, not just cost, not just because we're starting out cheap, but because we're starting out with, and I may be in a position within a few months that this will be really good information for me to have. But starting out cheap is one thing, but starting out with something that doesn't require me to know quality systems, be able to be forced to make those kind of decisions, really amazing. So this is way more interesting than I thought it would be.
Huh.
Thank you. I'm blushing if you can't tell.
Yeah, Rick is saying, wow, I really expected this to suck, but wow.
That is not what I'm saying.
All right,
words
fair
in
enough.
mouth.
Now,
Yes.
I want to add to what he said. So I'm thinking about that period of transition. So I've got all of these Word and Excel documents, and now it's time for me to grow up, and I have more money, and I can afford. When would I say, okay, this isn't going to cut it anymore? Yes, I could afford it, but now it's unwieldy, or, you know, hey, I'm really enjoying this low cost approach. Do we really have to go to a?
I had an over-the-counter medical device company sit in this type of process for 5 years, and and we parted ways. It was like, we're not even considering going QMS because it's running, it's effective. Why spend the money? Now, I'm not saying that to eliminate it, because I do find there is a lot of value in having those electronic systems, but you know, it's everybody's own decision. So everybody makes those decisions based on their business.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's this is the layout in my forms. And what you're going to notice is my human factor study that I did not knowing I was doing it. I use colors, and people will get to using the colors. Maybe I'll even show you a form.
Okay. In the meanwhile, Rains, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I did want to ask a question. Nellie, it sounds like you work with a lot of startups and new teams. I work with a lot of those types of teams as well. And I find that, you know, regardless of what system, whether it's paper, you know, the Word, Excel, or if it's something a little fancier, just a constraint in the project and that team's understanding is just managing the work. What do I do next? And how are we scheduling out those things? So you mentioned action trackers there. I just wanted to ask you, what do you use as an action tracker? You know, there's hundreds, if not thousands of things to do when implementing a QMS. That's a huge challenge. How do you handle that?
I go old school. I use Excel. I'm going to show you one that I'm using right now. I tell you, I don't bring anything new to the table because I use what I do.
I wouldn't use that in your copy.
Yeah. I'm going to try to figure out how to show you something without showing you anything in a.
You can pause your screen. You know how to do that?
No, I have 3 monitors. I can just move it. Okay. So give me 30 seconds. So I'll do this. I'll show you this. I'll use my quality ones first.
I do like that image. What is that image?
Oh, this is, so I'm an animal person, period. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw that this, I actually had a black cat and orange. So this kind of represented my cat family. Uh-huh. So that's why I made it my background.
Okay.
I think it's a spin-off Starry Night or something like that. One of the Monets.
Who's the artist? It's really nice.
I think it's Monet. I think somebody just took a Monet and adjusted it with some cats.
Nice.
So what I do is I have a quality tracker, which is all the QMS activity that's going on. And then I have a design control tracker in the DHF. At every engineering meeting, we actually will put the minutes, the date assigned, the date closed, and then and then it gets opened. And like, I think we're into the hundreds for one of my clients, and it's literally old school. We're going through the tracker and I'm filtering it by, okay, Nellie, what are your state of your system and how are you doing? And then when it gets done, it gets closed and filtered out. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah. I mean, Excel could be really effective. How do you address the challenge of essentially collaboration on that, locking down the file so two people aren't editing at one time?
So I don't, and the reason I don't, because right now most of my clients are so small, it's not a problem. And then if I have to move to that, then I go to OneNote, because OneNote, you can have multiple people doing things. The only reason I don't do an inserted Excel in OneNote now is because that still complicates the one person at a time. And but I have, if the teams get too big and everybody's in it, then it goes to OneNote. But I can actually tell if there's been an issue because I'll get a conflict file and then I'll go review it because I know the file so well because I'm in and out of them all the time. I can quickly usually identify it.
Okay.
When you get past like 40 and 50 people, that's when you start, okay, this Excel may not work as easy and you have to do the sharing option. But I haven't had that many issues with it with my small 5 to 20 people companies.
Yeah.
And most people, honestly, they don't want to go in the tracker. They just want me to drive it. So they all are happy. Just go, Ellen, you drive, we'll tell you what that is. And then that's the other way of, because I'm so, and actually, what is it? I think one of the people I work with said, hey, if we don't want to do it, you just give it to Nellie. She'll figure it out.
Yep.
So I become that team player, the jack of all trades.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Thank you, Rains. John, you had something.
Yeah, I wanted to congratulate you, Nellie. You've done an excellent job. I love the fact that you're using spreadsheets as long as possible. I love the fact that you're using DocuSign.
Be careful,
And
John.
also-
She blushes easily.
Yes, I can tell. And I've worked probably between 25 and 30 medical device startups over the last 25 years. I'm starting to get more than I can handle. And I wondered if you worked on some sort of relationship, because I like to be involved, but not necessarily through the documentation, all of the detailed documentation part. So would you work alongside, for example, if depending on the status of the company and whatever else?
Yes, I do that. I've been brought into, one of my clients is actually an investment or an equity firm that has like 5 companies, and I'm working alongside them. So, I mean, I'm very flexible. That's the good thing about me. Is like, I say, here's the goldenrod, right? And then we adjust it based on, and we work together.
Great, impressive.
Thank you. The one thing I also like to do is I like to empower my people to do what they need to do. And so I actually, again, it's another Excel thing. You can actually go right into the document log, and this is a working tool, so it's not a quality record. It's just a tool. But here are all your document tapes that are in that document that scared Joe. And you can actually go, oh, I want to do an SOP, right? And so you go to this link right here, and it's going to take you that page, and you can reserve a number.
Nice.
And then that makes it to where you can get any, because one of the things I've had that a lot of people complain about is like, oh, I have to wait for quality to get back to me with a number. And I'm like, well, no, I don't want you to wait for me. I want you moving as fast as possible. So, and then at the top of my document log is this return index, and you can get back. So when we're setting up a client, we're setting up this document log and prepping them. And then the next thing, thank you, is that the DCO log, again, another thing is this Excel, very low budget. I don't like to use a lot of forms or filters and anything. So here's your number right at the end. You want to use it? You go up here, you go like this, you'll do this. You go, oh, okay, Nellie wants me to do this. And then you just kind of fill it out, and you'll go, okay, whatever number you reserved, you're going to go like this. You'll describe it. You'll put your name and your date. And now you're on our radar for actually starting a DCO. And then the other thing is,
how long have you been doing this? I mean, to have set up all of these templates?
So I've been a part of 12 clients in the last 6 years. And so, and it just gets better. Every client I onboard, we find some new way to improve things. The other thing is these are completed DCOs. They're locked. Nobody can go in and touch or write to them. They're only read. The in-process one, this is everybody's freedom. This is the one thing that Paige and I really thought about. I have to tell you, my organization, it comes from I actually was in the Coast Guard for 4 years. So that's where I get that militant things go a certain way. So if you come in here and you copy this folder, you're going to be successfully processing a DCO in paper system or vPaper. All your documents, the folders are structured in the way a doc control process would function in a QMS. So it starts to teach people the concepts, right? So your first folder is all your red lines. And then we also have an archive. That way it's like, as everybody's editing it, it's like version 10, version 11. you can actually edit and do the red lines. And once everybody agrees to it, this is the document that gets routed, the final version that you say, oh, we all agree on. This folder here, one of the things I struggled with, 1% of DCOs, but it's critical, will have a reference document that does not get released with it. And nobody ever knows what to do with it. So I actually have this, it's reference and attachments. And sometimes I've put the standard in there where I've got my notes in it, or I've put white papers in here, or an engineer goes, oh, I want to put this in here, but it's not relative to our product, it's more just a reference. And now you have that forever in your DCO, you can go back to it. Once the document routes and everybody approves it, it gets downloaded here, and then it's done. And then the doc control team will send out an email saying to either suppliers or the employee or the group and say, we've released it. That email gets put here because this is actually a high area of nonconformance, is that communication of DCOs. It's built into my folder structure. And so it's easy to audit. If somebody actually misses it, we can fix it. And then once we're done here, we create final docs. And this is where they move everything from redline. They've accepted all the changes. They put all the dates in there, and they accept them, and then they move it into that current folder, which we'll go into shortly. And what's nice about this, because it kind of becomes what I call my oh shit file. If something ever happens, I have 2 copies of my final doc. Excuse my French, by the way. That military person comes out. And then this is actually my bad page. I was wrong. So final doc here. Here's the team notification folder. That's where everything goes. Anything you send out to teams and suppliers goes in that folder in one place. So that's the DCO folder. And guess what? Once you've done 2, they all get involved and they're, oh, this is so easy. I can do this. And they start falling into place instead of trying to go around us. Because that's the one thing that's the hardest part is they want to go fast. And if quality gets in the way, they're going to start going around quality. And now they start to see quality as a partner in this. The other thing I do, and now we're going to go into doc control land, is on my DCO, everybody goes, why do you have an Excel DCO for? And it's always the question. And I say, because it saves time and standard time labor at the end when my doc control person has to log everything. Everything moves. You're not spending hours, it's 5 to 10 minutes. So on my DCO form, like I said, it's Excel. You all have seen some of these things. So you put the number here and here. Oh, everybody's seen impact questions, right? So these are all, is there a kappa? Does it impact validation? Does it affect the something in the market already? If you have software, I add software questions. This template doesn't have those questions in there. The function question, everybody's used to it. They've seen it a million times. The supplier communications here. And these 7 and 8 are nuances I've added because of nonconformances. So does it impact other documents? Because a lot of systems, and this is why most companies transitioned into electronic QMS, to be honest with you, it's because there is not an effective way to do an impact assessment until you met the Bushman clan, the BQC clan. We fixed that, by the way. So, and that's part of our master index. And then the other thing that happens is your training matrix and your QMS index are always outdated. We fixed that because as part of this DCO, if you're releasing a new item that needs to be trained to or needs to be on the index, you have to either include it in this DCO or reference the DCO it's in for my 2 matrices that cover those areas. So that, and that's eliminated that. I call it a nuance or a nuisance nonconformance because it's really something stupid, simple. Why get one if you don't have to?
Can I tell you, I kind of stopped paying attention a little bit, only because I'm like, okay, I don't need to know this. I'll just call Nellie. I mean, honestly, there's just so much here. How could I? So I'm hearing want quality system, call Nellie. I can only speculate how many new clients are going to come out of this call. Jose has got this thing about Dropbox. He has another Dropbox question. Go ahead.
It's really another part 11 question. I was just curious, are you using Dropbox as your final electronic document records repository?
I am right now because most of my clients haven't gone. I actually have also started using, I'm testing Box. I've used Ignite, I've used a bunch of them, and I feel like I could actually mitigate any part 11 issues with some of the things we're doing with Dropbox with the monthly backups and sampling. And I'll show you that in a second, because realistically, the issue about data and your electronic records is it has to be retrievable. And so, and a lot of your part 11s, they make it to where they keep it. They only do 90 days, just so you know. Most of them say, oh yeah, you can retrieve it as long as you need to. But I've tested it, and most of them I can retrieve 90 days, some 6 months. So instead, you can actually go back to what I do with every client is we purchase a hard drive. We have a fireproof safe. All that hard drive is labeled with that client's name on it. Doesn't get used for anybody else. And once a month, we do a backup. And I'll just pull it out. Now that you pushed me there, I'm going to go there.
And Divya, who's not yet a member, so I'm not going to bring her on camera, has another question about sign-off. It's probably related. How do you maintain document version control with sign-off? Is it electronic signature or hard copy maintained?
So there is no versioning. The document gets uploaded to DocuSign and everybody signs it at their convenience. There's no editing. So if during a routing session, somebody comes back, oh, there's an error. So we'll assess the error. It's like, is it administrative an error or does it change the technical content? If it's an administrative error, my doc control person will save that email, put it in a memo and say, hey, we found this typo. We fixed it at the end at release, and they put it in the DCO folder and sign that record. If it's content change, we'll avoid the DocuSign, and we'll actually make the change and we'll reroute it.
Before, I know you're going to kick me off at some point, Joe, so just, and I am interested in this. On the DocuSign front, have you, not DocuSign, on the Dropbox front, have you gone through an FDA audit and sort of defended Part 11 support for something like Dropbox?
So it's on my VMP to validate it. And I haven't actually had to validate because most of my clients haven't gone there. I just have one client that just got there and they're on Ignite and they still haven't validated it because it's part of their VMP to validate it after commercialization. And with the mitigation that they're doing the monthly backups with verification of sampling verification that records are still there.
Okay.
Yeah, Jose, I use a similar type setup, and Nellie, I do use Box exclusively. So I've never even been questioned on it.
Oh, really?
Box or Dropbox, because they're different.
Box. Yeah,
I'm saying just the whole concept of the electronic storage on a cloud with the backup.
You know, I get that.
That's the only thing.
Is there a conversation here about Box versus Dropbox? Have you both evaluated both and made choices the way you did, or?
I have clients in both. So, you know, the two that people like the most, actually the three, it's Google, Dropbox, and Box. Whenever I hear Google, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I'm like, oh my God, no, because you can't do the permissioning. And I always try to, I go, and what it is Dropbox is that they'll transition easier from Google to Dropbox than they will to Box, which doesn't make sense to me. They're both they're both awesome, but the Box actually can turn you onto Part 11 quickly, where Dropbox doesn't yet have anything. I keep pushing them to say, gosh, if you just made the tag your Part 11, you'd be great.
I'm underinformed about this, so it may not be true, but I believe I've read that basically any Google service gives Google the privilege of anything you put on their system, server, cloud, whatever. They can access it and use.
Oh, if you find that in writing, can you give that to me? Because that may be something I can use to leverage to talk my clients out of Google.
Yeah, I would put a Bushman on it.
And so what we do is, so I actually sat in an audit for 4 hours. Yes, 4 hours, by the way. And this is how this form was birthed at Boston Scientific, because the IT guards, they're like, oh, my backups are automated. They're automated. They're automated. And the auditor goes, I don't care. Who humanly verifies that they're correct? So we came up with a process. And so what happens is my person who does my backup is my doc control person. And they'll go into these folders. And recently we've just added an other, that way we can do, and they will open 3 random files and say, yes, I can review it. It's there. And they sign it every month. And then what I do, this is the Nellieism, by the way, is in my VMP for DocuSign, as part of my validation, I says, as long as I can sign my monthly backup with DocuSign, I don't care what patch they do, that I consider it verified, and I don't have to revalidate it.
Rick writes, Google routinely reads and audits your documents.
Who said that?
Rick Stockton.
Rick, do you have evidence of that? Can you send it to me?
We'll look into that. Jan, you had a comment about pack rat, what? On mute.
It's just something, I've been with Dropbox for so long, they gave me the option of buying a pack rat thing that lets me keep stuff on their servers, even if I delete it for up to 5 years at this point in time. It used to be.
That's not a product. I mean, you're being playful with that term. Is there
No,
a product?
it's what it was called, pack rat.
Could
I love
anyone
it.
on this call contact Dropbox for the pack rat package?
Yeah, I'm not sure they're offering it to everybody right now, but they were, and I pay extra every year for having that service. It's a little bit less than the big Dropbox stuff that I do buy, information or whatever you call
Michelle,
it.
you were about to say something?
Yeah, so when I first got on, Nellie, I was gonna, kind of reinforce why having a quality management system set up like this is a good idea. And I really am adverse to electronic QMSs for small and startup small, and even to a point mid-sized companies, because and it's why I named my business Lean, is to right size it for what you need when you need it. And in my opinion, if you don't already know how a quality management system should work and know how to work it, getting an electronic system is like putting your quality management system in the matrix.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it has its own life and things and does things that you don't know it did and don't want it to do and don't know how it complies, and you know, and you can make it a real mess.
I agree. So
Like
one of the things when I first started, so I used to work full time, and it's kind of a funny little story. When I
It sounds
started,
to me as though you work full time now.
I do, but I used to have one job. Now I have
Yeah, you work for the man.
Yeah, now I work for me. I am the man that I deliver to the other man. And when I told my husband when my son was 6 months old, who's actually on the team, I want to consult when my son graduates high school. He's like, oh my God, there's no business in this. And he's a salesperson in the network industry, so he doesn't understand it. So I went and I worked in all the QMS areas. I understood them. And then somebody brought me into and I played around with, and they kind of like that was my pilot company for this type of a process. And then I got another friend of mine who I consider my key opinion leader, because I have a couple of key opinion leaders where we're always I'm always looking for ways to be better, right? It's effective, efficient, and fast. Those are the three things. How can I do that so that they can move, right? And that's where it really birthed. And then I got laid off from Air Expanders, and I had 3 clients. And then within 6 weeks, I had 6 clients. And so it just really evolved and went fast. And I love it. I love being a part of those new people who don't know anything. And I just love watching them come along. And then the greatest joy I have is when we're in the middle of something and a non-quality person goes, wait a minute, our QMS says we have to do this. And it's like, oh, yay, they learned something. They don't realize they're learning it. And by doing it this way, it's like spoon feeding a baby. First you start with a bottle, and then you've got, mushed up food, and then you give them, mashed potatoes and then a steak. That's kind of how I feel like I'm feeding you your QMS.
Which reminds me, it's almost time for dinner for Luke. He has a comment about paper systems. Oh, look at you. Nice mic. You're not using it though. We can't hear you. Nope. All right, technical errors. The great thing about paper QMS is it gets embedded in the minds of the organization because everyone gets to work with it. The problem with this is that there lacks a hard traceability between regulations and any controlled documents. SOPs, DHFs, if you name it, although many electronic QMS systems do not have it implemented well enough either.
Well, actually, I want to challenge you that I think we've addressed that, because one of the elements, every single document has this, by the way. And every company does it just a little different. I'm just going to go right over here. No, I'm going to bring up my template. Actually, no, I'm going to bring up my doc control procedure. That's just going to be better, but this is every document. It doesn't matter whether it's a QMS, a design control, and that's why we have the template. Is they have the reference table is not just about what's referenced in the document. It is, and I'm going to connect this in a minute. I'm just getting there. It's taking me a little longer. I apologize. I was going to try and keep it an hour. So this is.
Don't worry about that.
This is all the applicable regulations for this process. And then this might be this is any external references within the document. So if the applicable is also referenced, it gets put here. And then this is all the SOPs for anything that's called out in the document is here. And this connects to my master index. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But this is how we address that issue that you just brought up, is how you make sure everything's connected. Our design, our protocols do it, our requirements, everything has this table in it, and it feeds into the master index. Since I've talked about it, I'm just going to jump right in and show you an example. So my master index does about 6 things for me. And what happens is the document itself feeds into it, and my DCO detail page feeds into it. So the document number, the title, the change, the reason for the change, the revision, is training required, and what's my disposition. This table all goes in my master index, which helps with that whole regulatory connection. It helps with manufacturing when you have to go in and say, I did this part from A to G, where's the status? And they're all used as is, or some are not used as is. It's easy to go to one place. So ta-da, this is my big pride and joy. I call this the master index. It's basically the foundation for the entire change control system. And what that means is it does your list of the documents, the changes that were done. It does your internal reference link. It does your external reference link. If you had a regulatory assessment for design control change, whether you have to notify a body or an FDA or a 510K, it's in there. It has whether training was required and your disposition. So, and then it also talks about whether it's superseded or obsoleted. So let's just see. I don't think I have any change. Oh, I do have something. I'm bringing this one up right here. That's going to be the easiest thing for you to see the difference. So if I go in here, I can literally and go, now right now I keep my rows very small, but for this purpose, I'm just going to expand it. So that was the change, and that was the reason for the change for Rev B. So in the middle of an inspection, if I'm wanting to look at the history of a document, I literally can do it right here. I don't have to go to each DCO to do that. And that's been really, I mean, auditors have loved it actually. They're like, oh, wow, I'm not sitting here waiting. And that's why QMSs are so popular, is because you can do that in QMS just as effectively. The other thing is that we do, right? You know, how many times have we had a document change and everybody, we miss an impact assessment? So you remember that reference table at the back of the document? My doc control team will do this, and I'm just going to use training. That's the one I want to do right now because it's the easy. These are the three documents. If I made a training change, I would go look at these documents to see if it impacts them. And the one thing the answer usually is no on my QMS, because I don't duplicate information. So if I'm in a procedure and I'm referencing the training, I'll say, we're going to follow training. I don't create additional requirements in that, but that doesn't stop me. I now know where they're all referenced. The other thing is, how many times is a standard change? I think I'm going to use 1345 just because it's the easiest one, but 14971 is another one. Oh, guess what? These are all the procedures as part of that standard change. I have to review if they're impacted and updated. And it's also nice because it copies and pastes into, you know, a memo really easy as part of your DCO process as well.
Michelle, let me ask you, I mean, I don't know if you guys are collaborators or direct competitors. Do you have your own system like this? Do you use Microsoft Office tools?
I do. Yeah, I have a very, very similar concept in that, you know, it's based on Word, Excel, Box, and I use my signature book for the 21 CFR Part 11 compliance. And then we have a procedure that we wrote that validates the whole usage of those things and how they interact to fulfill 21 CFR Part 11.
Okay. Well,
and you know, another nice thing, and I'm sure Nellie's customers appreciate this too, you don't have to teach anybody to use Word or Excel.
Nope.
You know, so for startups, just the learning curve of getting a quality management system at all is pretty significant. Mm-hmm. So to also get them over the hump of, now you have this system that's electronic, but you also have this new software to learn. Mm-hmm. is a bigger deal to me mm-hmm. than to just start with this simple, straightforward system. And Nellie, I'm sure you've seen this too. I've had clients that bought off the shelf quality systems, like just a package of templates. And I'm like, and they didn't even know what words to take out of the procedure. You know, it'd have like blue text and you're supposed to edit it. And it'll be like, I'm like, you don't do servicing. Why do you have a servicing procedure? I don't know. It came with the, you know, it's an element in 21 CFR 820. And so we bought a template for it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Jose, we've had this conversation before and I've shared it with the group, but you are a former Greenlight Guru customer, correct?
Yeah. I've got so many thoughts rushing through my head, because I mean, we sort of, you know, I've been in the medical device industry for about 15 years. And when I first started, I was doing the stuff that you're saying, Michelle, right? You're kind of trying to be so lean that you don't hire an expert to come in and do it for you. And so you're trying to get, you know, free templates offline and figure it out. And that's a bad idea. You need somebody to really help you early. I've also made the mistake of trying to jump into a, you know, something like a Greenlight Guru, and it's not to throw shade on them, but I think early in a company's life, when they're implementing a QMS for the first time, I actually think it's a mistake to go with something like that. This is much better. And this is actually what our quality management system is like. It's very similar. The only differences I would say is we use DocuSign Part 11, and then we use Arena for our storage of release documents. But really, most of our workflow happens through Dropbox. And now we're transitioning to kind of a custom system that we're developing ourselves based on Jira and Atlassian and Confluence. Because the one thing that is not great, I've found, or two things I would say about these paper-based document systems are, number one, the traceability is very manual, right? So you've got like you know, you're trying to link this document to that number. Okay, so it's HRS 526, and you got to put that number here. And then if you want to find that, you got to come in here, and then you got to go back, you got to look for it. And some of these database types of systems allow you to kind of just click, and now you're on the other document immediately. So there's some efficiencies that come with that. That's one thing I like about it. And it particularly becomes helpful when you talk about design controls, right? So when you're thinking about, you know, you have 50 requirements or 100 requirements, and you want to be able to link your product requirement to your hardware requirement and the software requirement, or a failure mode and effects analysis hazard to like 3 hardware requirements that function as mitigations. In Excel, you can do it for sure, but it's more painful when you want to really create the traceability across all those different things. And database-based systems are kind of built for that, which is why we're transitioning to something based on Jira and Confluence, but it's not off the shelf. We're doing it custom based on all the learnings that we've had. It would have been a terrible mistake to try to do that before having gotten, you know, 4 years under our belt using a system like this that implements the kind of concepts into the team and into the culture. And so people understand this. And so now as we're transitioning, they're like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. I understand how to do it in the new system. It makes sense. It's easier. It's more efficient, but I understand the fundamentals. So I'd say that's the one kind of, you know, let me finish the second one, because I'll tell you the second one that we're finding, or we're very excited about with the new system that we're developing, is that we're building it to a point where, you know, we're a product development firm. So we do projects and we get a new client and, you know, we'll set up a new DHF tree, document tree for them. And we have our own QMS document tree and all that. But we're kind of working toward a process where we kind of fill out like an online web type of form, click a button, and like the full DHF is generated with a lot of the content already pre-entered, not only based on just like a very basic template, but based on like what kind of product we're developing, what classification it is, all that kind of stuff in a very automated way. And that sort of thing is much harder when you're doing a purely based, you know, Excel, Word type of system. But it is challenging to implement. It takes a lot of understanding of how the tools work. And so it's not a good idea to do that early. This is a better idea to do early. So those are my 2 thoughts on.
No, couple things though.
I've got to hop off. I just want to say I second all Nellie's emotions.
Michelle, let's get together and talk next week. You know,
yeah, let's have a happy hour. It sounds like we would have a lot a lot of stories to share over a cocktail.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Before you jump, if you can, Michelle, just another minute or two. Jose, you said you're building something. So is this like a cottage industry where every place is building their own thing? And I mean, it sounds, it's like they're reinventing the wheel, maybe because they don't know that Nellie and Michelle's wheels exist.
Well, you know, I want to interject for a second. And Jose, I want to encourage you, because what you're doing, Matrix Requirement, I've actually been partnering with Matrix Requirement on 2 of my clients, and they've actually given me their free QMS. And the linkage and everything you're talking about, they've already designed it. And what's really cool about it is the FDA has already viewed it with some of their clients. And I don't like the way they do their QMS structure because I've really honed my layout, but I like their linkaging, their electronic signature. So I literally started partnering with them. And you can actually build your FMEA. You can select the thing, everything you just said, they're already doing it. And you know what they do? They give you the protocols and reports for free. It's valid. I'm like, what? They're like, I give it to you. And then you guys can either execute it again, or you can write a memo saying, I reviewed it, I'm accepting it as is. And they are about, so I think it's like 3 something for 3 users, and the other users are free, just like DocuSign. And if you're a startup and you're under $1 million for funding, they'll give you 50% if you just put their name on your LinkedIn as a partner. And so I'm like, so I'm piloting that. But what I like about Matrix Requirements is it brings over the things I value the most about a V-Paper system, being mobile, being able to shift gears, being able to be efficient, you know, effective and trickle things in. So I am testing that system. So I would tell you to look at it and go get a tour, because their system actually, I am not one to goo goo gaga over anything. I'm skeptical. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome the whole time. And my engineer's like, shut up, Nellie, you're not going to get any discounts. So, I mean, yeah, no, I am partnering with them. I'm very excited by that system.
Okay, Michelle, bye. Thank you. And thank you for that, Jose. And while you were talking, Rick came through with a link, not the link, but a link about Google. I just shared that with everyone in chat. Happy MDR, everyone. Eddie is in the UK, and he has a question for you, Nellie.
Okay.
Hi, Nellie. Yeah, I mean, we literally just a week ago submitted our CE mark application, and so we've implemented our first QMS
system. Yeah, I unfortunately came late to the call today, so I need to catch up on things. But my big question, because we're based here in Europe, is what you're doing. You know, a lot of things I'm hearing, you know, Part 11 and all that sort of stuff, I know is FDA speak. How does what you do fit in with the Europeans, and in particular the new MDR?
So most the MDR, to my understanding, really hits your labeling and you know, your documentations for intended use. I do need to do a gap assessment to add anything in there, but the thing I think that I'm missing is, and it would be very easy to put in, is that flow chart of linkage of what processes feed into me versus what I feed out to. And I think my procedures are staged pretty effectively. I just have to like formulate a visual, because that reference table, technically, if you think about it, the external references do that already. And so I just have to put a picture together for that. That's what I think I'm missing, which would be, if you and I met, that would just be something in our agreement, say, okay, you're gonna, because I usually charge people $100 for each paper, like, so like doc controls 16 pages, or no, excuse me, is 12. So I say, okay, up to 6, it's $100 per, and then I customize it based on my hourly rate for your needs. So that would be that customization where we add in what we need for the EU on that.
Okay, well, so in the run-up, because of what Joe put in the description of what the call was today, I strongly encourage the folks that I worked with who really helped and supported us. They're a group called Compliance Solutions here in the UK. And if they're not on the call today, I will be sending the link to this, and they'd be the better people for you to talk to. I am such a novice. And last but not least, I will also say, and part of this is because, yes, we are a urology device company, that we use P drive, and I get the joke, as opposed to Box or Dropbox.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say, because we're a urology-based company, we don't want to piss away our resources on expensive QMS systems. I'm here all week, folks. Nellie, do you have some final slides that you want to share with folks? Because I think the main point is, if quality, then Nellie has come through loud and clear.
And so just to let you know, the things that I just showed you doc control today. That's all I showed you. The same principles and concepts we've actually done for training, we've done for complaints, we've done it. We take that into every system with the concept of keep it simple, superstar. And how do I make sure one record, I always try to make sure the rule is it has to perform 2 to 5 different tasks. We're not going to create multiple forms. So that's really where those are the words of wisdoms that I leave.
As you likely know, I typically don't invite non-members, MDG premium members on camera, but I just invited Chad Smith on, and I know you know him, but he had some glowing things to share that, if he's camera shy, I'll read to you, but I'm hoping that he tells you himself. Here comes Chad Smith. Hey, Chad.
Hi.
Hi. You want to tell the kind folks at home what you wrote to me in private?
Oh yeah, so I'm a new to the startup industry. Been working in big companies for the last 15 years, and this system is just awesome. I like to call it QMS on Rails, because it just, like, as an engineer, it just was really, after the initial thing, Joe. So just like the same thing, my first day with Nellie, I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what she's doing. But after about a week or two, I was like, oh, I recognize this. I recognize this. Okay, this all makes sense. And it would be perfect to bring into a bigger company. But in the meantime, it just, as an engineer, it stayed out of the way and just like makes everything really easy. So.
And I think we did what, Chad, didn't we do 70 drawings that we released in 3 to 5 weeks?
Yeah, so we released an entire system into this QMS in a very short amount of time. And then also, it just, like, as you go through the documentation, we were bringing on people that didn't know QMS at all, a surgeon and another engineer, and just like to be able to kind of spoon feed them as we went, where you did have some experts that knew what was going on. They were like, okay, yep, this works, this is good, and then a really high confidence that if we ever brought this product, to a bigger company, it would be really easy to translate into their system. So.
I think I'm hearing a third-party unsolicited endorsement of Nellie and her work.
Yeah, I really enjoy working with Nellie.
Thank you. I enjoy working with you too, Chad.
Okay, you two, get a room.
I'm blushing again.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think there's a better way to conclude a Nellie session with everybody loves Nellie. I mean, what have I got to add to I will invite folks to come next week when my friend Stephen Carter will entertain us with his British accent and talk about to patent or not to patent. And then 2 weeks from today, I'm really excited to invite the founder of AliveCore, Dave Albert, on. And his is one of the medical device companies that started in the last few years that has really taken off. I can count on one hand how many times I've worked with or talked with folks who are very ambitious and have great ideas that just don't get traction. I'm reading now. AliveCore is pioneering the creation of FDA-cleared machine learning techniques to enable proactive heart care and is recognized around the world for transforming cardiac care. So that's 2 weeks from today, and I'm looking forward to that session as well. Nellie Bushman, ladies and gentlemen.
It was a pleasure.
I can hear the applause.
And
Thanks,
I
everyone.
let's end with a blush, right?
Yes. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
guys.
Nellie.
Sure.
Bye.